Hello, today I am going to be doing what if Justin didn't convince Beth and Lindsay to vote off Izzy in this episode here. If you remember in action, Lindsay and Beth wanted to vote off Justin in this episode, but instead he was able to convince him with his looks to vote for Izzy instead. But this what if is just going to be covering if that just did not happen. So without Justin being able to convince Beth and Lindsay to vote off Izzy, because in this timeline he just assumes that they're going to vote for Izzy anyway, because he thinks that he has them under his control. But instead, they go with their original plan and vote off Justin. And he is eliminated here. Okay, so I'm not going to go over this entire aftermath because it mostly stays the same. The only difference is that Justin is a guest instead of Izzy again, but Izzy didn't even get interviewed this time because she already was with her first elimination down here. So that's fine. Um, his interview is mainly just about how he played differently than in Ireland, but then he didn't care to check on Beth and Lindsay before the vote, so he was kind of screwed over by himself. Yeah, it's fine. Okay, so we can just skip that aftermath. Okay, this episode starts off the same with the gaffers, mad at Lashana for lying about the spa trip, because they found out that she was fake crying in this episode because of the spa reward. Because she wanted it. So then Lashana leaves because she's mad at them, and she gets kidnapped because that's the whole thing of the episode. And then Owen wanders off because he detects a good smell from the kitchen. And I did wonder if Izzy would follow him to the kitchen, but she doesn't really care as much for food as he does. So Owen still goes off by himself, and she doesn't need to go everywhere with him, so it's fine. Okay. As soon as Chris announces that Owen has been kidnapped, Izzy rushes to the vault because obviously she cares about him. And originally the grips actually took a while to get Owen out because it was Lindsay, Beth, and Justin. But now with Izzy here, I think she could break down the vault door, because she's shown to be extremely strong in the past. And yeah, she cares a lot about Owen, and I really don't see why this wouldn't work. So yeah, she's able to just get him out really quickly. So then he starts going crazy and imagining his team as food, like the original. And the gaffers realize that the grips are going to take the lead because Izzy just got him out immediately. So they decide to just leave Lashana in the safe like the original. I guess I'll just move her over here. Okay, the grip originally take forever to get to the bank because Owen collapses from starvation, and I don't really think there's anything Izzy could do to stop this. So the gaffers still arrive, the vault first, um, and the grip gets second, and Courtney is their constellation prize. Oh, I never brought the aftermath cast up for the aftermath. I guess I'll just do that real quick. Give me a second. Oh my god. Wait, technical difficulties. Okay, we're back. We had some technical difficulties there with Courtney, but we're fine now. So the grips come in second because of Owen, so they get Courtney as a little constellation prize because they got second. And yeah, the gaffers they get like a reward, and I don't even remember what it was. I think it was like fake money or something. I don't know. It doesn't matter. So then the teams go run to the top of the mountain because they have to do the second part of the challenge, which is assembling their carts. And Duncan was excellent at this originally, because he said it was like stripping a cart in reverse. Um, well, Courtney, like, she had no idea what she was doing, and Owen started imagining Beth and Lindsay as food, and he was like chasing them around, trying to eat them. And Izzy now sees this, and since she's crazy, she also chases around Beth and Lindsay because she says it looks like fun. Owen bends the wheels of their cart, original, because he's crazy and he wants to eat. So Courtney comes up with a plan to run while carrying the body of the car. Uh, okay. Meanwhile, the gaffers are getting pretty close to the finish line, like the original. But they crash into everything they see, which slows them down a little bit. And then the gaffers also run out of gas, so everything is going wrong for them. Um, which leads to the grip catching up, and they make it to the end, but then their cart falls apart right in front of the finish line, and the gaffers are able to push their cart across the finish line and win immunity. Okay. So this means that the grip go to elimination, where everyone votes off Courtney despite Chris saying that they can't. So this means that Courtney's vote is the only vote that counts, and even with Izzy here, she still votes off Owen. Um, because even though Izzy is crazy, she really has no reason to target Izzy over Owen. Izzy is sad to see Owen go, and Owen tries kissing her before he goes, but he is taken away by Chef before he can. Okay. This episode starts with Lashana complaining to Heather about leaving her in the safe all night, because obviously she's pretty mad at that. And then Heather attempts to pull Lindsay's hair out with a hairbrush, and yeah. And then she comes up with the idea to steal someone's hair because obviously she's hair crazy and she needs someone's hair. And she doesn't want Izzy's crazy hair because it's like probably filled with like birds and things. I don't know what Izzy keeps in her hair. So she still decides to try and take Courtney's hair. Chris then blows his little horn thing and gets everyone to go start the challenge. He first announces that Courtney is able to use her PDA, she gets a gourmet meal, and she gets extremely comfortable living quarters and a private bathroom. And everyone is obviously really jealous and angry, but they don't want to fight with Courtney's lawyers, so they all stay quiet. Then Courtney and Duncan get into a little fight, and Courtney accuses Duncan of cheating on her with Gwen, and then the challenge starts. And Heather gets her red meat wig that she got originally, which was yeah. And then the contestants are forced to wear caveman outfits, and the first part of the challenge starts, and the teams have to collect wood to make a fire and then light it with flint stones. While Courtney is ranting about how she knows Duncan and Gwen got together, Heather is able to get some of Courtney's hair, and then she out crazies Izzy in the confessional. Uh, Originally, Duncan had a lighter, and because of that, he makes fire first. Then Courtney rants about how nobody could make fire with rocks like those because she's obviously really bossy and she couldn't make fire with the rocks. So she accuses Chris of giving them fake rocks that couldn't light fire, but then Lindsay grabs them and just makes fire immediately. This will be relevant in a little bit. And then the second part of the challenge was knocking each other over with off podiums over tar with bones. But since Lindsay was the first one to make fire because Chris found out that Duncan was cheating using like a lighter, and Lindsay was the first one to make fire with her rocks that she took off Courtney, the grips have the bigger bones to knock the gaffers off. The first round is Lindsay versus Lashana, and Lashana wins because as soon as Chris blew his horn to start the challenge, Lindsay fell. So yeah, Lashana didn't even have to do anything. Okay, and then Lindsay's screams attract pterodactyls, which is just great. Okay, the next round was Beth versus Heather. Beth takes this because the pterodactyls knock or just knock Heather onto Beth's bone, and Beth lets go of the bone, causing Heather to fall into the tar. The next round is Izzy versus Harold. Izzy easily takes this as she's right in her element as a cave person, and she knocks Harold off immediately. Okay, so that means that the grips have 2 points and the gaffers have 1 point. Okay, so then the final round is obviously Duncan versus Courtney. When Chris blows his little horn to symbolize the start of the challenge, he knocks them off their pedestals and they kiss. They then lead. Uh, they then lead in for a second kiss, but then Courtney just beats Duncan off the pedestal thing and gives the grips the win. But the reward is like a barbecue that like gets knocked into the tar. It's really not very good. Okay, next episode. This episode starts with Beth just sleep twirling Courtney's PDA and almost breaking it, which obviously really upsets Courtney. Then Chef throws spaghetti at everyone, and the challenge starts. The first part of the challenge was the contestants competing in a competition to find out who will fight who in the next part of the challenge. The competitors were like put up against each other based on who did the best slash worst in this challenge. So that's what this is about. And the only new player here is Izzy, and I think she would probably do the best on her team. Uh, you could say that maybe Courtney would do better, but in the original, Justin did better than Courtney. So I now definitely think that Izzy would be able to do better than Courtney because we know that she's extremely athletic and agile. Okay, so we can just start with the first challenge, which is still going to be Harold versus Lindsay for doing the worst. And Harold easily takes this like the original because it was slow motion and Lindsay bit his marshmallow. So the gaffers take the first point. Okay. During the challenge, Beth takes Courtney's PDA and discovers that Shauna was like lying to everyone and like making fun of them on her spa night. Um, yeah, that'll be relevant for later. Then the next challenge is Heather versus Beth, playing tennis, and Beth wins this again because everyone making fun of her fake boyfriend only fueled her power to win. Then Lashana roasts Beth, and Beth, she reveals what Lashana said about everyone on the spa night, and everyone is mad at Lashana except Heather because she doesn't really care because all Lashana said about Heather was like she was mean, and everyone knows that. So yeah, Heather stands up to for Lashana, so that's cool, I guess, and it starts a little friendship. Okay, the next challenge was a wrestling challenge between Duncan and or no, that's Lashana, Duncan and Courtney. And Courtney destroys Duncan like the original. And then the final challenge is a challenge where the competitors have to make the most creative dunk they can in basketball. And Izzy faces Lashana because they're the last two left. And when I think of crazy and creative, I think of Izzy. So I don't know exactly what she would do for her dunk, but yeah, I feel that's probably more up into interpretation. But Izzy easily takes this. She's destroying Lashana. So that means that the grips have 3 points and the gaffers only have one, so there's no need for a tiebreaker. The grips have already won, and we're just gonna put them up here because merge is after this episode. And Lashana is voted off here because she didn't get to do her cheer apology. So now, because there wasn't a tiebreaker, so now these guys are all still mad at her because she didn't get to apologize. So, yeah, so Lashana is voted out 3-1. But before she leaves, Heather says goodbye to her, and they actually confirm that they think of each other as friends, and they still have that adorable little moment of their friendship that was completely forgotten in World Tour, but it's fine. Okay, next episode. This episode starts off with everyone hanging out outside, and then Lindsay and Duncan fall into a hole in the ground, which gets Courtney to worry because she needs to go check on Duncan to make sure he's okay because she obviously has a crush on him. But then she also falls into the hole, and then Harold is left behind as everyone runs inside because it's Harold, so no one really cares about him. And Izzy attempts to fight whatever is capturing all of them, which results in her capture. So this leaves Heather and Beth trapped in the trailer, but then they get knocked out by a sleeping fume, so it really doesn't matter. And then they wake up in an underground cave, and Chris announces the merge, and they sing their song for some reason, whatever, and then they find the elevator out of the cave, and end up going to the laser room. Lindsay and Beth originally are terrible at this challenge, and yeah. And Courtney, she won it originally, and she was really good and stuff. However, Izzy is still here, and Izzy is extremely agile. There's no way anyone is beating her in this challenge. Uh, Heather knows that they're at the merge now, so she knows she needs allies because she's even surprised that she got this far, honestly, after her island performance. So she tries making an alliance with Harold because Harold is like an easy person to make an alliance with. Because Harold has shown to actually have a crush on Heather, and Izzy because Izzy's like she had an alliance with Izzy in Island, and Izzy's just crazy and stuff. So she figures that she could just take Izzy with her. Okay. Um. So yeah, I don't see any reason why they wouldn't agree because, as I said, Izzy's crazy. Harold, he kind of has a crush on her. So also it just furthers their goal in the game, especially for Harold wanting to target Duncan, and Heather doesn't really care about this because Duncan is a strong competitor, so she wanted to get him out too. Then Izzy karate kicks the glass case open, removing all the lasers, and then Chris makes everyone think the room is about to blow up, and everyone freaks out. But then Chris announces that he was lying about the explosion, but then makes them think the room is going to blow up again. And now that Izzy has the zipline thing, she would just connect the zipline to the other building that they wanted to escape onto, and they would all zipline across. And then Chris announces the next part of the challenge: the contestants must cut the correct wires on the bombs in order to not get blown up with the stink gas thing. But since Izzy has the wire cutters, she goes crazy and just cuts all the wires on all the bombs, resulting in everyone getting sprayed by the stink gas and having to bathe in tomato soup. Oh, also, Izzy gets a tour to a cheese factory, but it really does not matter, so yeah. Okay, next episode is this one. The episode starts with Heather trying to make a girls' alliance because, obviously she has this alliance here, but she'd also try and, make a girls' alliance to just make sure that, she has the numbers here because obviously she does have her alliance with Harold and Izzy, but if these four work together, then they're, like, taken away. So, having a girls' alliance would also benefit. Obviously, after Duncan's out, she'd have to betray someone, but that's fine. Um, she also is hoping to be able to blindside Courtney, because obviously Courtney is a really strong competitor, and then she doesn't really care who goes first between Duncan and Courtney, as long as they both get out, because then she just finds the game easy because no one else is really a strong competitor. However, this just results in the girls getting into a fight, and everything goes wrong. The superhero challenge then starts, and the contestants have to create their own superhero. The only new people here are Izzy and Heather. Heather makes some sort of wig superhero so that she has an excuse to wear a cool wig because obviously she wants to cover up her bald head. Chris isn't too impressed by it, but it isn't bad. And I got this recommendation on my last video in action where I had no idea what to make Izzy's superhero. Izzy's superhero is Explosivo. She just makes herself crazily overpowered with a bunch of superpowers, and a bunch of attachments to her outfit. And Chris thinks it's kind of cool, but doesn't really care much about it, especially because she just keeps going on about all the power she has. Um, but it doesn't really matter what he thinks of those because Lindsay is 100% still winning this challenge because Chris loved Woman as a kid. And Lindsay obviously dressed up as Wonder Woman. So then she gets a 10-second head start, which is really weak. I just want to say, how is that is not an advantage? 10 seconds, whatever. Um, and yeah, she gets the 10-second head start advantage in the next challenge, which was the obstacle course. And Izzy is 100% winning this. You had to use a lot of agility and balance in this, and that's what Izzy has. So Izzy is winning this because she's super quick, she's super agile. She's 100% winning this, and Izzy has immunity in this challenge. So now on to the real vote. Okay. So Heather doesn't really have much to do. She what? Okay, I'm sorry. I'm just reading my notes. Heather doesn't really have much to do to convince Lindsay and Beth to vote off Courtney, as Courtney was just driving them crazy all throughout action, but especially this episode. And there's really no reason for Izzy or Harold to switch their votes. Maybe Harold would because he did originally, but I could see Izzy being very annoyed by Courtney, so even if Harold did swap his vote, these four still overpower these three. So Courtney's voted out 4-3 or 5-2. It's probably 4-3 because Harold swapped his vote originally. It doesn't matter though. Also, Harold might feel a little bit bad. Like Courtney could be like, "You screwed me over an island. Now you owe me this." But Harold can't really do anything to convince these guys to not save Courtney because they're all really annoyed by Courtney, and they don't really care if Harold screwed her over an island. Okay, next aftermath. So I can bring all these people up. I'll just move them there. Okay. The episode starts off with. Oh, shoot, I forgot to bring them up. Also, all these people who are all still here, they're all still in the aftermath, but I'm just not bringing them all up because I don't want to have to keep bringing them up and putting them down. So, they're all still in the aftermath up until, like, Justin. Oh, wait, no. Up until Owen. So, Owen, LaShawn, and Courtney, they're guests, but Justin, DJ, Gwen, and Trench are all on the aftermath. I just don't want to have to bring them up every time and then put them all back. Okay. The episode starts off with Jeff and Bridget announcing the eliminated players, who are Owen, LaShawn, and Courtney, as I said. And then Jeff rants about how good the ratings have been ever since he became his Chris clone self. And Bridget tries knocking some sense into him, but it doesn't work. They then introduce their first guest, Owen. Okay. Owen's interview goes pretty much the same as canon because he's still got eliminated the same way. Owen gets put onto the electric chair and he tells the truth about everything and doesn't get shocked. Then Bridget starts ignoring Jeff, and then they play the "That's Gonna Leave a Mark" segment, and that all goes fine. So we can put him back. Then Lashana and Courtney are introduced. Heather and Lashana got introduced together for some reason in this aftermath, so I guess they would too. Um, Lashana's interview basically goes the same. She isn't that mad at the others for voting her out because she sees how bad she looked, and then she admits to having a crush on Harold in the lying electric chair. And yeah, Courtney's interview is mostly her complaining and yelling about getting voted off, especially as she only came back this episode or that episode, and then she already got voted off that episode. So that's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 episodes that she got. So she's mad, and obviously, and she can't see why anyone would vote her off because she's just so likable and amazing. Then Jeff gets strapped down into the electric chair because everyone wants revenge on him for being so mean. He gets electrocuted like a million times, and then he apologizes to everyone, and Jeff and Bridget close out the aftermath. So I'll just put these guys back, and then moving back onto the actual game. This episode starts with the cast sculpting statues or sculptors or whatever from burritos. Courtney originally sat away from everyone during this because, even though they were all having fun, she just thought it was gross and didn't want to get involved because obviously she hates them all. And I originally thought Heather would take her place of just sitting out. However, we also know that Heather is really into art, so I actually think that she'd enjoy having this little fun thing with everyone, sculpting and whatever. Um, Beth and Lindsay obviously make their burrito friendship thing with a friendship bracelet thing. Harold makes his Lashana thing. Izzy just makes a giant mess as she's just trying to fit all of her ideas into one art piece, and she's just left with a giant burrito mess. And Heather makes a sculpture of herself, but with hair because she misses her old self. But Duncan rips the hair part of her burrito off, saying that it's unrealistic. Duncan then crowns Izzy the winner because even though she did just make a giant mess, it is by far the biggest burrito. But none of this really matters. I just thought I'd cover it instead. Um, anyway, the real challenge then starts, and one of the girls have to wear the glass boot and become the princess. However, the two winners of the last challenge were the only two who could participate in the boot wearing, and those two are Lindsay and Izzy. And since Lindsay has giant feet, even though if you've seen my short, you see in World Tour she doesn't actually have giant feet, so, a little writing mistake there. Anyway, moving back. This makes the princess Izzy. Oh no. Anyway, I guess I'll just put Izzy up here for now because she's not over here anymore. She's just waiting on the set. The rest of the cast are given their other roles. Beth is the ugly stepsister. Lindsay is Sleeping Beauty. Harold is a dwarf. Or that's Duncan. Harold is a dwarf. Duncan is Little Red Riding Hood. And this leaves Heather to be the Frog Princess. It was originally a Frog Prince, but it's a Frog Princess now. They then have to cross the bridge to save the princess. Beth goes first and she slips on the poisonous apples and she fails. Um, and then Harold goes and he's able to balance on the rope and make it across, so he makes it. Then Lindsay goes and she falls off collapsing. She falls off the collapsing bridge and she fails. Uh, Heather goes and she tries running across the bridge really quickly, but is knocked off by Chef's axe. Um, then Duncan goes and he slightly lifts his blindfold so that he can see, and then he uses Chef's wig to cross like he did originally. So this actually leaves Harold and Duncan as the two princes competing to compete the two princes competing to save Izzy. Yes, I can speak. Okay. So they have to save her from the villainous chef, but when chef abducts, I can't speak. Izzy just beats him up and runs to the top of the castle herself, waiting to be saved. Um, this fight is between Duncan and Harold, and it seems like Duncan would win, obviously. However, Harold used math to almost win originally, but Justin then betrayed him and like beat him up. But now without Justin, Harold is able to win and gets to the top of the castle where he sees Izzy. Um, well, no, he doesn't actually. Izzy's not there. He gets to the top of the castle and she's not there. And then the cameras go off screen where we see that she's on a date with a monster they had to defeat. And obviously, the monster was the one who was capturing them all in this episode, and she went on a date with him. So she's off on a date with him. And since Harold was the last one on the castle, Chris announces him the winner of immunity. Okay, for this vote, oh shoot, Heather convinces Izzy and Harold, who are in her alliance, to vote off Beth, because letting Beth and Lindsay, who are like pretty much inseparable, make it to the final five is very dangerous. And since Harold is in love with Heather, and Izzy has shown a lot of distaste towards Beth in action, they both agree. And Lindsay and Beth throw their votes on Heather, and Duncan throws his on like Izzy or something. I don't know. It doesn't really matter. I mean, potentially he could put his on Heather, and then it could cause a tie, but I don't see why he would. Yeah. Beth is then announced the loser, and Lindsay walks her to the limousine, with Beth wishing Lindsay luck, and Lindsay promising to eliminate Heather for her. Oh, and also Izzy has a princess doll made of her because Beth did originally. Yeah, that all happened still. Okay, next episode. This episode starts with Duncan catching on to Heather's alliance with Izzy and Harold, as he usually sees them sneaking off together, and somehow Heather is controlling the vote. Uh, so Duncan decides to form his own alliance against Heather. Obviously, he gets Lindsay because Lindsay's the only one not in this alliance, and she obviously agrees because she hates Heather and stuff, and she wants vengeance for Beth. So that leaves Duncan to either ask Izzy or Harold, and he obviously chooses Izzy. Because there's no way he's asking Harold, and even if he did, there's no way Harold's listening to him. Um, Duncan talks to Izzy to try and recruit her against Heather, but Izzy is mad at Duncan for trying to slay her beast boyfriend last episode. But then Duncan points out that he didn't, but Harold did, and Harold works with Heather. Izzy realizes this and agrees to the alliance so that she can eliminate Harold. Harold then finds the drive with a message from Chris, and Lindsay has the idea to dig underground to find Chris, but Duncan turns this idea down and says it makes no sense. And without Courtney, they might not go straight to the bank safe, but I think Harold, Duncan, Heather, they're all pretty smart people. They'd be able to realize that like what Chris is hinting at is the bank vault. And then they find him in the vault, and Chris announces the challenge. The contestants have to get DNA from each other, and then meet him at like the train at like night or something. I don't know. Duncan's able to get Harold's DNA by beating him up like the original. Um, Heather try Heather Heather. I'm sorry, I can't talk for some reason. Heather tries convincing Harold to give her his DNA, and as he goes on a rant about how he isn't going to give it to her, she forcefully takes it like Duncan, just like by beating him up or whatever. Then Izzy swoops in, using blanket sheets as a vine, and beats Heather up, getting her DNA too. Heather is then left with bruises all around her body, similar to how she looked after Lashana beat her up in World Tour. Um, so this then causes Lindsay to be the only one who doesn't have any sort of DNA, and yeah, like the original, she doesn't have any DNA to show Chris. Once they get on a train like the original, Heather kind of takes over Courtney's role after Chris pretends he's dead, with just not believing that he's dead at all. Um, then Lindsay tells her cheerleading story and tells them how they need to get fruit punch so that they can bring Chris back to life. But no one listens to her, obviously. And then Harold tries contacting the engine, but no one answers. So then Lindsay draws Chris's outline of his dead body with lipstick, and Izzy climbs to the outside of the train. But unlike Duncan originally, who really was like, get me out of here, she enjoys the thrill of the train. Harold then suspects that Chris has been murdered and finds out that Duncan's hair is on the body. Um, so they lock up Duncan with handcuffs, and because they think he's guilty of murdering Chris. Heather and Lindsay then get into an argument, and everyone takes Heather's side, not because they like her, just because they believe that Lindsay's too dumb to figure anything out. But while Izzy, Harold, and Heather are all trying to, while Lindsay, I'm sorry, I can't read. While Izzy, Heather, and Harold are trying to stop the train, Lindsay finds some of Heather's DNA that Izzy had collected and figures out that Heather is the murderer and wins the movie reward to share with one person. And she chooses Izzy to fully recruit her into Duncan and her alliance. Okay, let's move past that episode. Okay, this episode starts with Lindsay singing, annoying everyone because obviously, and Izzy starting to get visibly annoyed, and then complains that she had to spend 3 hours at the movies with Lindsay last night. Duncan sees that Izzy is getting annoyed by Lindsay, and he starts to get worried as now. Obviously, Izzy won't want to work with Lindsay if she's annoying everyone. And then Chris announces that Owen will be returning. I theorized and considered. I don't know why I said theorized. I considered if Courtney would return instead of Owen, as she could definitely cause more drama. But Chris has been shown to find Courtney really annoying, and he actually bonded a little bit with Owen um in a few seasons. And Owen actually needs to come back as a spy because he needs the money after his family blew it on the cheese seller. And Courtney can't lawsuit her way back in the game. Is the only reason she did it originally was because she was unfairly screwed out of the game because of Harold's last time she played on Island. But she was fairly voted out this time, so she can't really lawsuit her way back in. Then the challenge starts, and the first part of the challenge is playing the guitar like a band member. Duncan wins this, like the original, for not trying at all. Heather does fine, but she tries a little bit too much, so she gets eliminated. And Izzy fails to hit any of the notes so that she purposefully gets electrocuted. Um, because as we seen in episode 15 in the Island Challenge, she finds getting herself electrocuted and stuff very fun. The next part of the challenge is walking the red carpet, and Duncan gets to start halfway down the runway alley thing for winning the first part of the challenge. Um, Izzy attacks every fan that she sees because it's Izzy. Um, and Heather, I could see having a very similar strategy to Lindsay. However, since Heather's lost all of her hair, everyone has basically lost attraction towards her but everyone has always been attracted to Lindsay. So Lindsay wins the second part of the challenge. So now for the final part of the challenge, the one for immunity. Lindsay has an extra 10 seconds for winning the second part of the challenge to this to destroy the room. But there's nothing she can do. Izzy is 100% winning this because it, it it's Izzy. She's able to destroy a room in like 5 seconds. So Izzy once again has immunity. So now that Owen is back, Duncan's able to add him to his alliance. Um, and Izzy also agrees to join this alliance now that Owen is a part of it because obviously she wants revenge on Harold and Heather. However, she has a catch that she refuses to vote anyone unless it's Harold for slaying her monster. And although Duncan would prefer to vote for Heather because obviously she's like the mastermind behind the alliance, he doesn't really mind voting off Harold because it's Harold. Duncan hates him, so Harold is eliminated in a 4-2 vote. Heather is shocked and demands to know why Izzy flipped, and Izzy tells her that Harold killed his monster or her monster, and she wanted revenge. Okay. Next episode. Heather realizes that she needs to form an alliance with Izzy and Lindsay to stay in the game. Oh shoot, I forgot to move this up. Because she's at the bottom of the team now that Duncan has gathered this alliance. But as she talks to Izzy, Izzy just brushes her off, saying sure, whatever. Um, and Lindsay refuses to fall under Heather's trap again. Then the contestants wake up at Camp Wawanakwa and Chris announces the challenge. Originally, the challenge was boys versus girls, but since Owen isn't competing, so he can sabotage and cause drama, we have an uneven ratio of girls to guys. So Chris just lets them pick the teams. Heather chooses Izzy, as she figures if she can manipulate Izzy to her side, Owen will follow, so that she has majority of the team. So this leaves Duncan and Lindsay as a pair, which neither of them are too thrilled about. Duncan fights for the Lindsay and Duncan duo, the Lincoln duo, yeah, and Izzy fights for the Hezzy duo. Oh god. Then we see clips of Duncan and Heather trying to trick Lindsay and Izzy into an alliance because obviously they both kind of are desperate because they're targeting each other. Um, yeah. Meanwhile, Owen is spying on everyone and gathering information. The fight then begins, and Duncan and Izzy are put into robot suits. There we go. While Lindsay and Heather have to control them. But before the round starts, Owen gives Heather and Izzy uh, information on Duncan and Lindsay's training so that he can help Izzy because originally he couldn't decide who to help, but now it's clear he's helping Izzy because he loves Izzy. The fight then starts, and I think Izzy and Heather win, as I don't see Heather or Lindsay being too good at controlling the remotes, but Lindsay is very clueless and oblivious at times. So, and Heather is quite smart, so I think. Plus, they also got the help from Owen, so I think Heather and Izzy could win. This means that Duncan and Lindsay have to prepare a meal, while Heather and Izzy, along with Owen, have to climb the mountain to like do I don't know. They have to like fight him or like put out a fire or something. I don't know. Heather tries talking Izzy and Owen into her alliance now that she has the time to be with both of them. But when she looks up, she sees that Izzy and Owen are already like 30 feet up the mountain. Owen tries convincing Izzy to spill Heather's water on top of her, but Izzy states that she's too high up on the food chain to go after uh, little meat like Heather. Plus, she's also way too high up on the mountain, so she doesn't want to have to go all the way back down. Uh, okay, this causes Chris to threaten to fire Owen as a mole if he doesn't cause drama soon, and this obviously worries Owen because he needs the money. Lindsay and Duncan have to cut up the fish for the meal, and Duncan offers to do this as he finds it fun and thinks it would keep Lindsay on his good side because obviously Lindsay doesn't want to have to cut up fish. And things go well um, until Duncan gets dragged into the water by an octopus. This leads to Lindsay throwing the box of knives under the water so Duncan can fight the fish, but it only results in Duncan getting a haircut that he didn't sign up for. Izzy makes it to the top of the mountain very quickly, but then she realizes that she spilled all of her water while rushing up the mountain, and she has to wait for Heather to get to the top of the mountain. Also, Owen gets there quickly because he has zip line things pulling him up because of reduction. Owen reminds Izzy that Heather voted her off an island and made her lose a chance at the million. Izzy replies saying that it was worth it to shoot Heather with tranquilizers. When Heather finally when Heather finally arrives to the top of the mountain, Izzy beats her up. Oh, no, wait, no. Izzy beats up the Yeti. Izzy doesn't beat up Heather. Izzy beats up the Yeti while Heather pours the water on the fire, winning the reward, which is food Lindsay and Duncan made, so it's probably not that good. Moving on. Chris wakes the contestants in the middle of the night and introduces the space challenge, but first gives the contestants their gifts from home. Duncan gets his pet spider Scruffy, and Owen gets his trophy like the original, because they were both here originally. And I had to make up gifts for Heather, Lindsay, and Izzy because all of them weren't here originally. So for Heather, I said a wig that she could cover her bald head with because obviously that's what she cares about the most. For Lindsay, I said the magazine she got her face on the cover of as she speaks about an island because obviously she's like freaking out about getting her face on a magazine of a cover in Ireland. Yeah, she'd probably get that. And for Izzy, I really don't know. But I said something similar to Duncan, because I feel like Izzy would really like things like a pet spider, as she's definitely crazy enough to have something like that. It doesn't really matter though. So the actual first part of the challenge then starts, and the challenge is to spend the rest of the night on the zero gravity spaceship. Izzy handles this very well, but Lindsay and Heather do not, because obviously they kind of like gravity. Um, okay. Then the spaceship gets hit by an astronaut, so it shuts off all the power, which leads to Owen breaking a hole in the spaceship with his trophy. And to solve the problem, Izzy karate chops Owen, or karate kicks, not chops. She doesn't chop him in half. She karate kicks Owen into the hole, and because of this, Izzy gets to decide the order of who goes uh, first to last in the next challenge because she's the one who solved the problem. And she puts herself first because she likes taking risks and thinks that going first is really risky. Because obviously that's the general consent. Oh my god, I can't speak. She wants to go first because she likes taking risks, and going first is risky because then you don't get to see everyone else go. Okay, that's what I'm trying to say. Okay. She puts Owen last because obviously she thinks that going last would be better, and she cares about Owen, so she wants Owen to be safe. Um, and he needs time to heal after her karate kick. So the final order is Izzy, Duncan, Lindsay, Heather, Owen. The second part of the challenge is riding around in the vomit comet, and Izzy goes first, and I could see her lasting quite a while. She lasts like 3 minutes maybe before Chris just takes her out because he's getting bored of her not throwing up. Originally, Harold squashed Duncan Spider when he rode in the vomit comet, but now Izzy's pet spider eats Duncan Spider as she's trying to attack, and obviously this really upsets Duncan. So he now goes next, and he's able to last 23 seconds, but throws up and loses 10 seconds, making his final score 13 seconds. Then Lindsay goes, but only lasts like 10 seconds, and then throws up, especially because she's riding in Duncan's vomit. Heather refuses to ride in uh, everyone's vomit because that's just vile and disgusting. But then Lindsay whispers some things to Owen, Izzy and Duncan, and they all share a little grin, and then they all drag Heather and force her into the vomit comment for what she did to all of them in Ireland, and she lasts like 30 seconds before Chris finally lets her out, and she's obviously very mad at everyone. Then Owen goes, and he lasts like 30 seconds before Chris finally, or no, I was reading Heather's. Then Owen goes and lasts like 10 seconds, but then gets out because obviously he's like really not good with that kind of thing. Meaning Izzy once again has immunity. Izzy and Owen are voting together because they're a couple, and so are Lindsay and Duncan because they're in an alliance. But all four of them mutually agree to vote off Heather. Like, everyone's too mad at her, and they all enjoyed torturing her. She potentially could be able to convince Izzy and Owen to vote with her, but I think Izzy and Owen would rather keep Duncan than Heather. So Heather's out 4-1. She's annoyed, but she's seen it coming, so she walks out without saying anything. Moving on. This episode starts with Lindsay hearing some sort of alien noise coming from Izzy's bed. When she finally gathers the courage to lift up the covers, she finds Owen and Izzy making out. She has a strategical moment, thinking she needs to ally with Duncan, or Owen and Izzy will vote them out, because even if she... Oh god, wait, unscripted moment. I need to charge my thing. It's gonna die soon. Give me a second here. There we go. Okay, back onto the actual what if. Izzy has a little strategical moment where she thinks that she needs to work with Duncan, because if she works with them to vote off Duncan, then she needs to win the next immunity challenge. Because if she votes off Duncan here, then if the one of them wins immunity, then they just vote her off, which wouldn't be very ideal. So she runs into the guy's trailer and wakes up Duncan, and she's about to propose an alliance, but then Chris blows his horn announcing breakfast. Chris then announces that the animal buddy challenge will be the next challenge, and the contestants have to pick their animals. Owen picks the bear because it's very similar to him, because it's like lazy and it eats a lot. Lindsay takes the raccoon because she thinks it's like a dog and she thinks it's like cute and all. Duncan takes the chameleon because it reminds him of his pet spider, Scruffy, and that leaves Izzy with the shark, which he's actually thrilled about. Owen is ordered to mess with the others while they train their animal by Chris, so he has to do that. So he sprays Duncan's hair like different colors so that his chameleon gets confused and turns to different colors. And he tries messing with Lindsay, but like Beth, Lindsay's turning into the raccoon's pet, so Owen doesn't think he really needs to do anything. But he refuses to mess with Izzy because obviously he cares a lot about Izzy. Instead of Owen adding his blood to the shark tank, Izzy adds her own blood to the shark tank to make her because she wants to brawl with the shark and she wants to make it a little bit more exciting. The talent show then starts, and Lindsay and the raccoon basically just do what Beth did originally, scoring a 10. Then Owen and the bear go, and they act pretty much exactly the same as each other, so then that scores a 6. Then the chameleon turns the color of Duncan's mohawk, scoring an 8. Then Izzy attempts to brawl with her shark, but this just ends in the glass case that the shark is being held in cracking, and the shark's water is pushed towards the lake because there was water in the tank, obviously. Izzy then chases after it, and Chris announces the second part of the challenge, getting the animals back to Chris, and Izzy seemed to get a head start. Owen was given a GPS by Chris for messing with the others, so when he messes with them, he gets rewarded and stuff. Um, Duncan is trying to find his chameleon because he lost it. Izzy is brawling with her shark in the lake, and Owen is too busy messing with the others. So Lindsay is able to find the raccoon's hideout place, and basically just takes Beth's entire role this episode because Beth acted very dumb this episode. But like she acted like Beth. She also acted a little bit like Lindsay. It was like a mix of them. So this means Lindsay has immunity. Now on to the vote. Lindsay and Duncan obviously have their alliance because Duncan wants to work with her because obviously he agrees that if he doesn't work with her, she's going to get voted out. And they both vote for Izzy. Um, Izzy votes for Duncan, and Owen votes for himself. All the stress from lying to Izzy has gotten to him, and he just wants to leave. So he comes clean and confesses to everyone about being a mole, and because of this, Chris boots Izzy and Owen, because Izzy got 2 votes, Duncan got 1, Owen got 1, and Owen quit and confessed to being a mole. Okay. This episode pretty much goes the same. Lindsay does everything Beth did originally because she would. When Chris and Chef fight, Lindsay comforts Chris. Lindsay's so involved with the drama that she gets all the questions about the other competitors right. Lindsay hates Courtney, so wouldn't get the Courtney question right. Lindsay saves Duncan from the crater, and they both get to the aftermath, shown at the same time. Side note, this isn't important, but originally Duncan said he would have kissed Beth if she didn't have a retainer, and now that Lindsay's the one who is saving him and she doesn't have a retainer, Duncan would probably kiss Lindsay, especially because he's been shown to think she's really cute and hot and stuff. That doesn't matter at all to the story, but it's whatever. Okay, the finale. Let me get the aftermath hosts and contestants back up here. Okay, and here we go. And I'm just gonna actually take wait, let me there. I'm going to pause for now and take all these contestants up because they have to vote. So I will be back in a. Okay, I'm back. I've got all the contestants here. Jeff and Bridget start off the show with a montage of all the contestants in the show, and then we see Chris and Chef going on a vacation, and Lindsay and Duncan sit down on the one-person winner chair, and they squeeze to try and fit on it, but then they do. And then they have to squeeze through their little hole in the wall challenge thing, which was an idea by Harold, so that they could decide a winner. But it just ends in another tie. Then Jeff and Bridget play a montage of Chris's worst moments just to, stick it to Chris. So Chris comes back and hosts the show. He takes over. I'm sure I have a Chris picture down here. I'm just going to grab him. He's so relevant. I do. Here he is. I'm just grabbing him right here. Never had to use Chris before. Oh, I did not think this through. I probably just should cut this out. Whatever. Chris is back. Here he is. I'll just put him over here. Then Chris plays never before seen footage of Duncan and Lindsay. Duncan's clip is him tucking all of the contestants, like all the guys, into bed and actually being a nice guy. And Lindsay's scene is her being impressed by something Courtney does. Because I always thought that this scene was really stupid between Beth and Duncan. I'll just put Beth up here for now. Because they showed Duncan like being a nice guy, but then Duncan was like taking all the guys into bed, but then Beth was like eating all the girls' cookies that they were also to share, and like that is so unfair for like all the everyone who's going to vote for who they want to win, because now obviously everyone is going to want to vote for Duncan because Duncan's scene was him being nice and Beth's scene was her being mean. Whatever, it's fine. And I think that that's better for Lindsay because obviously I don't just want to take Beth's one, and Lindsay's shown to be like really like she hates Courtney with every being in her body, so her being impressed by Courtney would be a good thing for her little moment there. Then all the contestants are able to ask a question to the final 2 to see what they want. Trent's question is asking for advice with this whole Gwen situation, which is weird. Duncan says that he just wouldn't listen to the girl's orders, while Lindsay says that she would never date someone on the show and she just does not know what it feels like to have dated someone on the show. Then Tyler is shown, and he storms out of the room with Lindsay waving in the air goodbye, Todd. Then Izzy asks for a dancing competition between Izzy and or Duncan and Lindsay, where Duncan absolutely destroys Lindsay because it's Lindsay. No, like literally, he actually destroys Lindsay. Like he crashes on top of her. Anyway, Gwen asks what they plan to do with the money that they win. To help the environment and stuff. Lindsay says that she'll buy lipstick for every homeless person, and Duncan says he'd donate the money to weird criminal people because it's very Duncan-like, which for some reason Gwen likes. Anyway, moving on. DJ. puts Lindsay and Duncan in a scenario where they have to destroy daisies or dandelions. Duncan chooses to destroy the dandelions because they're weeds, and Lindsay decides to destroy. She decides. Oh my god! Lindsay says she wouldn't be riding in a field of daisies or dandelions because there are so many other flowers that fit her aesthetic. DJ then claims she sort of got it right because Beth got it right originally for not destroying either plant, but now Lindsay's just not there. So she sort of got it right. Um, then Owen challenges them both to an eating contest, and they both do pretty much the same terribly. Then Heather just goes on a rant about how she should be the one on there, and she should be the one who's winning. And yeah, she doesn't even say anything. Then Lashawna asks them how they would spend the money if they won. Lindsay says that she'd move to France with Beth and her mother, and she'd also buy lipstick for every homeless person, like she said earlier. And Duncan says he would buy 2 lipstick tubes for every homeless person before checking that he doesn't actually have to stay true to the spike press. Then Justin asks if he's still attractive towards Lindsay and Duncan. Lindsay tells him that he's still the cutest guy on the show, and as Lindsay says this, Tyler finally walks through the door, just like clearing up his tears. But once he hears what Lindsay just said, he runs back out crying. Then Duncan tries complimenting Justin, but it just ends up being weird, and he fails. Then Beth kind of just does what Lindsay did originally, saying that she's gonna choose Lindsay and doesn't really have a question to ask. Then Harold has an art competition for both of them to do. Lindsay draws something similar to what Beth drew originally, and Duncan draws a samurai thing. Um, then Courtney starts asking her question, but Chris cuts it off, saying that they're out of time and it's time to vote. And we have our votes up here. I guess I'll just put them here. I'll move these guys up. Okay. Heather votes. Oh, wait. Give me a second here. Oh, I did not think this through. No. There we go. And there we go. There we go, okay. Anyway, back to this. Heather votes for Duncan. Gwen votes for Duncan. DJ votes for Lindsay. Beth votes for Lindsay. Owen votes for Duncan. Izzy votes for E-Scope. Give me a second. E-Scope. Give me another second. E-Scope. Courtney votes for Duncan. And then Harold votes for Lindsay. And originally, Lashawna and Trent get knocked out by Owen's fart and didn't vote. But if I did make that happen, then it either ends in a tie or Duncan wins. So Trent votes for Trent votes for Lindsay because obviously I'm wait, I'm trying to find it in my script. Yes, here we go. Lashawna gets knocked out by the fart that Owen did because yeah, and Justin's vote changes based on each ending because he said that originally. In Lindsay's ending, everyone lifts her up and celebrates with oh, I should probably move them up. Okay. In Lindsay's ending, everyone lifts her up and celebrates with her, and she hugs Beth really tightly, while Duncan and Courtney run off into the sunset together. Okay, and then in Duncan's ending, Duncan celebrates with Courtney and his friends, and Beth comforts Lindsay, telling her she's a winner in Beth's book. Oh, how cute. Oh, wait, oops. Yeah, okay, that's it. Okay, this is the end of the What If. I enjoyed this one. Lindsay finally got to win, And although I don't really like Duncan as a winner in action, it does no harm for him to remain in the finale. And I also don't like how far Heather got and how she was kind of the main villain in this What If Again. But I guess it's okay, and it is kind of annoying because she got really far in Island. She's gonna win. Well, actually, she probably wouldn't. I mean, she could win, but like if in this scenario, maybe she wouldn't win World Tour. I don't know. But she got really far in Island. She got really far in action. Potentially far in World Tour. It's whatever. But I guess it's fine. Thanks to user FC3XD3YI3I for the idea, and that's pretty much it. Bye. Let me know what you thought of this What If in the comments.